question because it's been brought up before, and I've had other creationists say there are textbooks that say, according to evolutionary theory, we evolved from a rock, and I have yet to find a single textbook that says that. If you have one, I honestly would like to link for that, and I will read that.
There's not a textbook that even allows for that.
I am calling it up right now. But in the meantime, while I get this in my PowerPoint, I have like 10,000 slides now. Do you believe this original cell came from a primordial soup, which came from the in the oceans or a nice warm pond or something like Darwin? Where did this original cell come from? Where did the first living cell come from?
I did a video on this, also simply titled Abiogenesis, which is set as an instructional material for middle school students, in which I explain that I don't necessarily subscribe to just the primordial soup. That's a possibility, I suppose. There are a number of overlapping ones. There are more than a dozen different processes that are distinctly different from each other, and none of them qualify as the evolutionary processes, but which also lend, any number of them could be true at the same time. Almost all of them could be true at the same time.
Okay, so I'll ask the question once again. Where did the first cell come from? What do you think? What does Aron think is the answer to where did the first living cell come from?
As was explained in the video when I answered this the first time, giving it again, let's see, how can I paraphrase this? I believe in I think the RNA first example is probably the best supported. I think everybody universally agrees with that.
Either the RNA world hypothesis or some kind of
related to the that. Primordial soup was it was a good one for its time.
That's back in the 70s.
Yeah, but RNA first appears to be it.
Yeah.
And then, of course, with the cell, because that's what he's asking about, is he wants to go to he wants to skip a whole bunch of different stages and go just to the first cell. And then we're talking about hypercycles, where you have a phospholipid bilayer, which already includes replicative RNA, not DNA yet. But I think before we can classify as life, we don't necessarily have to have DNA yet, where it's enough to just have RNA.
Self-replicating RNA.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay, now, and where did this RNA come from? You agree? I think we both agree that
Why
RNA
are we talking about that instead of evolution, which is the thing we were supposed to be discussing tonight?
Yeah, and the question that was posed...
You asked me a clear question. Where is the evidence that you believe you came from a rock?
Well,
I'm trying to get... I think if you guys would admit it, this RNA had to come from the water somewhere, from minerals in the water, and the minerals came from a rock.
Kent,
no.
And the planet Earth
no,
cooled down.
That's actually not the hypothesis, Kent. But Kent, the question I've asked this before, and I know Aron's frustration on this quite well. For evolution to occur, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, Aron, but for evolution, you have to have genetics. You have to have genes. You have to have a change of allelic frequency in a population.
But also to address his misunderstanding about this, when there was the Murchison chondrite that landed in Australia in 1969, which was that would we would all accept that was a rock, but it was a rock that was also found to contain many different dozens, I think, different amino acids and some unknown chemicals of extreme complexity, but they were not themselves rock. So at 0 point in our ancestry were we ever descended from a rock. Nobody, nowhere, never, ever thought this. You have been wrong your whole life about this. Fix that error.
So this meteorite that was found in Australia is your answer. It contained things. In other words, life came from outer space. Is that what you're trying to imply?
Wrong.
Oh, wrong?
What I was explaining is the distinction between the amino acids and the rock matrix they were found in. They are not rock themselves, nor were we.
Okay, would you tell me, are amino acids made of the 92 naturally occurring elements?
Being a part of a natural occurring element does not in any sense make you a rock. If you freeze oxygen, would you call that a rock?
Well, a supercooled crystal like ice, I guess, or I'm not sure if
we're
that's...
talking about oxygen right now.
Yeah, I don't know if...
frozen hydrogen. Can you freeze hydrogen to make it into a rock?
You're diverting to a different topic now.
The same topic. The same topic you would like to divert away from. But yeah, it's if we cannot ever refer to these things as rocks simply because they're frozen, because they're not actually minerals, then we cannot call them rocks. At no point ever were we rocks. No evolutionary biologist ever thought that we came from a rock. Why would you believe something so dumb as that evolutionary biologists think we came from rocks? Why do you keep repeating this lie no matter how many times you've been corrected?
Well, I haven't been corrected. You think
you've been corrected right now, now.
Okay, so
not by me.
What evolutionary biologist in history has made that claim that we evolved from rocks? So I'm 48 years old, and I've never heard that except for creationists say it ever.
Okay, let's. I'm looking for the slides in the textbook now, but I have hundreds of textbooks. Do you believe that the Earth cooled down? Do you believe the Earth cooled down 4.6 billion years ago?
Kent, with all due respect, you are changing the subject right now.
No. This is exactly the point. Do you believe?
Exactly the point was for you to identify kinds. That was the only way that you could deal with my two items of evidence that I gave. Was that we know things that are true to be, we know things that are verifiably, demonstrably, observably true about evolution, where we have no such information about creationism. That's one you have failed to address. You simply denied that it exists, and you redefined everything through the fallacy of equivocation. And you have failed to address the phylogeny challenge, so you can't address my issue with phylogeny either.
Well, we're on to 5 different topics. Let me answer the one about the rock.
Well, they're the same topics. These are the same topics.
Okay.
They're just
okay. I have in front of me the answer to your question. Here is a first grade textbook in my collection, which says Earth has changed much since its formation 4.5 billion years ago. Do you guys believe the Earth is 4.5 billion years old? Or 4.6 or 4.6297 and 3 months.
I will have to defer to the experts on this because I don't know the thermodynamics or the physics. There are other people who do that. I do phylogeny.
I'm showing you from the textbook, a first grade, I could show you from every year textbook, that the Earth formed 4.5 or 4.6 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball of rock. This is what the books teach.
Okay. Is metal also rock?
Well, yeah,
I've heard that it was rock and metal. My textbook said it was rock and metal. Matter of fact, I think my textbook said rock, metal, and gases.
So did this hot ball of rock?
So how do you distinguish rock from metal?
Well, that would be an interesting question. I think there are quite a few metals that
especially since our bones are made of calcium, and that's considered a metal too.
Sure.
And you've already established that
oxygen
cannot be considered a rock even if you freeze it.
Before you dance around the subject,
again,
I'm showing you the answer.
That nobody ever believed that we came from rocks.
I'm showing you right now.
You guys are talking over each other now. Kent, what you just said, what you just quoted from that textbook, I just don't think answers that question. That doesn't involve evolution. Evolution is something that requires genes to have a change of genetic frequency of the alleles. Whether the initial sources, you can go back to where they came from the Earth, where they came from stellar nuclear synthesis, where they came from the Big Bang. You can always go back where the elements came from, but we're not asking where the elements came from. We're asking you. You're saying that evolutionary theory states that we evolved from rocks. I have yet to ever see that, and what you quoted has nothing to do with evolution.
Well, that's where in the last 20 years, it's maybe because of my seminar. I'll take credit for that.
No, I'm almost 50. I've never heard it ever before in my life, except for what you've said in the past and other creationists.
Well,
so I'm still
wonderful.
not seeing anywhere it has said that we have evolved from a rock.
Well, then God sent me here to help you then, because the textbooks clearly teach the Earth cooled down 4.5 billion years ago, and it was a hot ball of rock.
But that's planetary formation. That's not evolution.
Right. When do we start with evolution?
You're not up to the evolutionary part yet. You're at planetary formation.
Yeah. We're not talking about concretion here. We're talking about evolution.
You can go back to the nebula hypothesis, but that doesn't get you to evolution yet.
And even if we were to misdefine it the way he is here, where he wants to take descent with genetic and inherent genetic modification and somehow extrapolate that to planetary concretion, still we didn't come from rocks.
Yeah,
because this is obviously not a planet just of rock. It's also rock and metal and gas and other things that don't qualify as either of these things, like amino acids and so forth. Just being made of chemical, he's already admitted, does not mean rock. If you can freeze oxygen and you still wouldn't call it a rock, just like you wouldn't call ice a rock, then it's not rock because it's not a mineral. So we're done. You're wrong, Kent. Correct your error.
We're not done, and you are wrong, and I have nothing to correct. Now, the textbooks teach 4.6 billion years ago, the Earth cooled down. It was a hot ball of rock. From that rock, the gases escaped and made an atmosphere of oxygen. From that
so
rock,
you're saying oxygen is a rock?
No, it came from the rock.
Okay, but oxygen doesn't come from rock, does
oxygen. Many of the rocks contain oxygen.
Oxygen is an element.
I agree.
What mineral does oxygen come from?
I don't know, but I can show you where the textbooks
It doesn't come from a mineral, Kent.
The textbooks teach the Earth began as a hot ball of rock, and everything came from there.
Does hydrogen come from rock?
Apparently so.
How would that be apparent?
Well, you get a chemistry book and see how many rocks or minerals contain hydrogen in part of their chemical equation.
Well, many will contain the simplest of all elements, but that doesn't mean it comes from rock. You don't need rocks to create hydrogen. As a matter of fact, you need hydrogen to create rocks.
Wow. You asked me to point out where the textbooks teach this, and I show this clearly on my video.
And you failed utterly. Faceplant. The sad thing is you don't know that you face-planted. That's the disturbing thing.
No,
or maybe that you do, but you realize that donors won't see it if you can gloss over it somehow. But hydrogen does not come from rocks. You can combine two hydrogens to make lithium, for example, and you can combine, or obviously helium, and then combine a third one to make lithium, and so on. And you can get up to rocks, but you can't get hydrogen from rocks because rocks may contain hydrogen, but rocks don't produce hydrogen.
So according to the theory in the textbooks, the Earth was a hot ball of rock 4.6 billion years ago, and the gases came out of those rocks. I didn't write it. Which
means that the rocks did not produce the hydrogen. The hydrogen pre-existed them, and still no evolutionary biologist ever believed